the host of this? Are you the host of the Zoom? And if so, can you let me share my screen?
I'm the host and I will let you share your
okay.
screen. I'll make you the co-host and I'll make Nixon the co-host as well.
Awesome.
Maybe
great.
Megan, before you begin sharing, would you like to allow us to introduce those who are joining in from Kenya so they can say their names and at least from which organization they are representing?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So once again, thank you so much for hosting us to this meeting, and I thank everyone for honoring our invite to join in, and I look forward to the conversation and us working together to drive carbon action within the built environment in Kenya and the rest of Africa, leveraging on the forum. So myself, I'm Architect Nixon Atieno, the CEO of Legal Green. And for now, I'll be serving as the convener of the hub locally. And I look forward to working together to set up a very vibrant hub and working with all of you. So I'm going to allow the rest of the Kenyan team to introduce themselves. Allow me to use the order on my screen, not in specific order of significance, but just as you appear on my Zoom list. So I'll start with Charles. Charles, you can tell us who you are and which organization you represent.
Yeah, my name is Charles Sirin Chawambura. I'm the county director in charge of public works for Migori County in Kenya.
Thank you, Charles. Then next we have Boniface.
Hello, everyone. My name is Boniface Nduma. I work with Nixon at Nico Green. I'm head of climate change and emerging technologies.
Thank you, Boniface. Next, Adede Oscar.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My name is Oscar Adede.
To be here.
Are you getting me?
Yes, you can hear you, Adede. Proceed.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Adede Oscar, Director, Lands and Physical Planning, Kisumu County.
Good evening. Evening.
Miriam had asked architect, but you can proceed. Yeah, proceed, Miriam. Sorry, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
Muted. Oh, okay. Okay, good. Here I am. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Miriam, Director Environment, Nyandaro County.
Thank you, Miriam. Then next is Architect Patrick, if you can unmute.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me, Nixon?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Architect Patrick Mugo. I'm representing the Board of Registration of Architects and Quantity Surveyors, where I am the Director of CPDs, that is Continuous Professional Development Programs. Thank you.
Thank you, architects. And next on my list, I have Architect Martin Tairo.
Thanks, Nixon. Hello, everyone. My name is Architect Martin Tairo, practicing architect, but currently I'm the CC for Public Works, Roads, Transport, Housing, and Infrastructure in Taita Taveta County.
Sorry, Architect Tairo, you want to say CEC stands for what? I think Andrew may not understand what CEC means.
Sorry. CEC is a County Executive Committee member. Well, I don't know whether I would need to describe it further, the structure that we have, but I work in the county government, where it's a devolved system of government, where we are headed by a county governor. So we are the cabinet. I'm part of the cabinet for the county government.
Thank you, Architect Tairo, and welcome. So next on my list, Wanadoshi, karibu Hemal.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and good morning to Megan and Andrew. My name is Hemal Doshi, and I'm the CEO of MedSec Cables Limited. We basically manufacture power cables in Kenya, and we're looking at how we can add value to green buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. So next is Gideon, Architect Gideon.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gideon. I'm an architect, practicing architect, and I'm also the chairman of Environmental Design Consultants chapter of Architectural Association of Kenya, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gideon. Then I have Mr. Kionga. Mr. Kionga.
Thank you so much, Nick. Hi, everyone. My name is Thomas Ekidor Kionga, Director, Climate Change, Turkana County Government. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Then I have to
and please don't worry how I look like. I'm just from the gym.
No worries. Yeah, then we can have Cecilia.
Greetings, everybody. Cecilia Wandiga, Executive Director of the Center for Science and Technology Innovation. We're a UNESCO-associated center focused on climate change and environmental science, especially atmospheric research. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Cecilia. Then next I have Linda Bina.
Good morning for Andrew and Megan, and good evening for the Kenyan team. I'm Linda Osoro from the State Department for Roads, an economist from the State Department for Roads.
Thanks so much, Linda, for joining us from Roads State Department. Kennedy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kennedy Matheka. I'm the program coordinator on matters climate change, sustainability and green buildings in the State Department for Public Works, Nairobi. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I hope we got Kennedy all through, or is it my network? He's from the State
We got him.
Department of Works. You got him? Okay, good. I think I covered everybody. Is there anyone that I did introduce? If I didn't introduce anyone, you can just raise your hand. Oh, Evelyn. Evelyn, please.
Greetings. Greetings. My name is Evelyn Aworo Nyango. I work at the County Department of Environment, Natural Resources, Climate Change, and Disaster Management, Migori County. I'm Climate Change Officer. Thank you.
Right. Thanks. So I guess everyone is introduced. So in case you're not, you could just raise your hand and introduce yourself because before I come in. So allow me to turn it over to Megan.
Thanks. It's really great to meet everyone and looking forward to having some more conversation in a little bit. But yeah, thanks so much for making time. And I'm just going to share some information about CLF and who we are and what the regional hubs are. And then we'll get back to having some more discussion about what regional hub look like in Kenya. So, all right, we already went through intros, so thank you to everybody for introducing yourself. We're going to do a quick intro to CLF and regional hubs. I'm going to ask after that Nixon to give a quick background on how we got connected and some thoughts about what this partnership could look like. And then opening up kind of the floor for some discussion to just get a sense of everyone's ideas and viewpoints on embodied carbon, on creating this collective impact initiative and just kind of getting a lay of the land to see what you all would want to see a regional hub do and look like in your community. And then we can wrap up and we'll have some next steps and action items to get things going. So the Carbon Leadership Forum, like Andrew said, is based at the University of Washington, and we accelerate the transformation of the building sector to radically reduce the greenhouse gas emissions attributed to materials or embodied carbon used in buildings and infrastructure. We research, educate, and foster cross-collaboration to bring embodied carbon of buildings to down to zero. So through our kind of collective action, we look to improve embodied carbon data and methods, advance embodied carbon policy, and bring together people like you and professionals in the field to implement change and bring solutions and resources to your community. And so what we call our collective impact model, we connect a network of architects, engineers, contractors, material suppliers, building owners, policymakers, associations, and plenty of other industry stakeholders through various forums. We have a couple set programs that we connect with our network on, one of them being our online community. We have regular sponsor calls. We have virtual focus groups and regional hubs, as well as a NGO governmental roundtable. So together with our network, we look to enable research, investment, and action to reduce the embodied carbon in buildings and infrastructure. And then a quick overview on our network. It has really grown and evolved into an engaged and vibrant global community of about 6,500 professionals from across the building sector, academia, nonprofit, and government groups. It's representing about 200 cities from 33 countries across the world. So we have a really wide network of viewpoints and individuals and insight that is super valuable to the work that we do, and also valuable to you all as resources, as collaborators, to share ideas and resources and tools to help you and help others with kind of the task of lowering embodied carbon in buildings and infrastructure. So Andrew sent a little info sheet that we have that goes into a little bit more depth of what our regional hubs are. But I just am going to go over some highlights to kind of set the stage for the rest of our conversation. So the CLF Regional Hubs are a chapter program, and it's completely volunteer led. And the main goals are to help interested professionals connect, to share best practices, have discussions, and just spread the word and resources about embodied carbon. And so one of the things that we look to have our regional hubs do is really leverage CLF's nationals, research, resources, and network to enact change in each community. And so, what's really important and valuable for our regional hubs is that, we have guidelines and frameworks, but we really encourage and want regional hubs to really reflect and fit the community that they're made in. So in the US, what a Washington State hub looks like is going to look very different from a Pennsylvania hub. And so we really encourage leaders and members to dive into what's going on in the embodied carbon climate of that community. And so hubs kind of put on these activities and actions, and just connecting all these different stakeholders to have these really important conversations, to educate, to share resources, to do deep dives, to get together in social situations and network and just talk about all things embodied carbon. So the goals of the regional hubs, like I said, are overarchingly to support conversation and learning about embodied carbon. But more specifically, we want to encourage members and hub leads to learn how to reduce embodied carbon in their projects, how to bring these skills and resources back into their own work, to engage in new discussions to advance embodied carbon understanding and action. So just again, kind of giving tools and resources to help members and individuals become catalysts of change outside of the regional hub, to create, share, and utilize educational resources that aid in reducing embodied carbon. Just, hoping to get more resources and materials out there that are helpful and useful to bring back outside of the regional hub and in projects and organizations. To act with others to advance public and organizational policies. So we have kind of been growing our policy side of our regional hubs, which I'll go into a little bit, and it's also on the info sheet that has some links and resources into what the policy work we do with regional hubs as well. Connecting their firms, company, and organizations to CLF's embodied carbon mission as partner and sponsors. Our work is really valuable to so many people across the industry. And so connecting these big organizations with regional hubs and with CLF can really help advance the understanding and knowledge of embodied carbon, both from us at CLF and the regional hub members, but also making it a two-way street to understand what work they're doing, what resources they have, and really just encouraging that cross collaboration. And finally, address systematic inequality and structural racism, connecting environmental justice with the carbon challenge. This is something new that we are really beginning to focus on, and acknowledging the structural and systemic racism, mostly in the US, because that's where we're based, but acknowledging that climate justice is such a global movement, and it's important to kind of take a step back and look at how embodied carbon can really link to the global climate justice challenge. And so, we're looking forward to having more really candid conversations and educating ourselves more, as well as being a source of education and resources for our hubs, and kind of enabling that conversation to spread throughout the hubs as well. So one of the main functions of the hubs are to put on events and gatherings. And again, each hub is kind of situated in a different context. And so those events are going to look different for each hub. But a lot of hubs put on educational webinars. A lot of things happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. So for better or for worse, a lot of our hub events are online. Which means we can reach a broader audience in each community. So that's cool. And so, some of these events are online educational webinars, like you can see here, about embodied carbon policy or specific tools or a case study. And that's kind of like the main focus of what a hub lead might be doing for the hub. But we're also really encouraging other types of gatherings, such as in-person networking, case study presentation, and recently there's been some hubs doing embodied carbon project awards, so highlighting case studies and examples of really great low embodied carbon buildings, projects, materials, and just bringing that kind of to a wider group of people to replicate, to learn from, to share. And so, we really encourage anything that fits the context of what is going on in the community, whether it's policy action or education, embodied carbon 101 knowledge, or diving deeper into tools. All of that is just really great and exciting. And we look forward to, kind of seeing what, all the volunteers come up with. Just another example of kind of adapting to local context. This is an example of the San Francisco, California hub. And some of the things that they found that their community really needed were a lot of education, interesting case studies, and then some specifics that dive deeper into embodied carbon tools. And so the hub leads have put together this really dynamic and awesome website that houses all of these resources that they've sourced from their community and from the regional hub, to make resources to then kind of bring back to the regional hub. So They have a case study map. They have a pretty big resource library, and then some more specific tools that practitioners use across the industry. And so this is just an example of what the need was in San Francisco and how that hub was kind of able to fill that gap. And so, yeah, that's like the super quick overview. Like I said, there's some more information on that Regional Hub info sheet and on our website, but just wanted to give a little bit of context. So kind of the next steps for how hubs start up is I linked this guideline for CLF Regional Hub leaders in the info sheet, but I can also share the link once they finish chatting. And so it kind of goes over everything that I just said with some more detail, some more intricacies and things that need to be done. But essentially, what happens next is we look to have 2 to 4 co-leads who kind of become the leadership team, who schedule events, who organize the calendar, are kind of the main points of contact for collaboration for our hub members, and just kind of the people spearheading, keeping the hub moving. After that, we like to have our regional hubs have social media and a website of sorts. Again, it's really gonna depend on what you all feel is right for the community that you're serving. So whether that's a LinkedIn, a website, an Instagram, whatever feels suitable to reach the audience you're looking for. And one of the great resources we have is called the Organizer's Toolkit. And on that, you'll find instructions for how to create that website, the LinkedIn, the Gmail account, so you can send emails and manage your membership list and all of that. So that takes a little bit of work to get all that together. And then kind of once that foundational framework is set up for communications and outreach, you get to start reaching out to members, which is really exciting. Usually it's in form of, we're starting this new regional hub and we would love to have you there. We'd love to hear your voices, hear your insight, that sort of thing. And then you get to organize your first event. And so a lot of hubs opt to kind of have a pretty open and just like conversational first event. So maybe environment or embodied carbon 101 intro for people who maybe don't know about it yet. And then followed by a discussion of like, what are topics you want to hear about? What are things that you need resources for, would like to learn more about, to kind of crowdsource what exactly people are looking for. And then starting to choose some of those topics as you move on and have more events. Typically the cadence of events is once a quarter, more or less totally fine if it feels like it's right for the hub and the community. And again, it can take different forms. It could be case studies, example, you can come and have a panel, talk about a specific policy or project or something like that. But yeah, that's kind of the quick overview of what will be coming next. And yeah, that's all I have for now on regional hubs and CLF. So I guess before we start having more of a conversation about what our next steps would look like, are there any questions, anything I can clarify? Yeah, anything I can help with?
Yeah, thank you so much, Megan, for that presentation about the hub. Probably allow me, before we take the questions, I was actually going to put you still on the spot to give us a little bit more overview of what the Carbon Leadership Forum does in general, apart from the hub focused activities. But before then, allow me to just introduce a few members who joined while we already were on. We have 2 Johns. So first we have John Paul Malawi. John Paul, would you just like to unmute and tell us who you are and which organization you are representing?
My name is Winston Atamba, representing government of the Higa. we don't have to bother about fundraising.
All right, thank you, Wilson Adamba from Vihiga County. And then we have John Paul Malawi. Okay, I think he may not be able to speak now, but John Paul Malawi is the director in charge of environment at Nairobi County. And then we also have John Mlamba. John Mlamba, would you like to say hello?
Yes, good evening, members. My name is John Mlamba. I'm the Director, Climate Change and Environment, Taita Taveta County. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I think lastly on chat, I can see somebody is also joining from Kilifi County. All right. Great, thanks. Welcome from Kilifi County, Jimmy from Kilifi County. Which portfolio, you can tell us, environment or public works? You can put it on chat. So probably before we ask questions about the regional hub, Andrew, I wanted to request if you could give us a little bit more information in the general activities that the forum does that could be potentially of also benefit. As Megan mentioned, we could leverage on the resources, but it would be clear, good for members to know what are these resources that are available, part of the work stream that already the Carbon Leadership Forum does. I think you had some presentation that unfortunately I didn't send it out to members, so it would be good to give them the context. Yeah, welcome, before they can ask questions and we can engage.
Yes, great. I'll be happy to give you a kind of a short overview. So the Carbon Leadership Forum started as a program of the College of Built Environments at the University of Washington. It was 13 years ago, I believe. And at the time, very few people across the world in the building industry were really aware of or understood the challenge of embodied carbon. The green building movement, which started really over 30 years ago, has largely been focused on energy reduction or on energy efficiency, or as we've come to call it, operational energy, the reduction of operational energy in the built environment. But the Carbon Leadership Forum, we noticed that there is a massive carbon footprint, as Megan was saying earlier, for the materials that go into buildings. So the extraction, manufacture, transportation, and then installation of materials in buildings. And as I think you all know, there are just two materials, steel and concrete, are responsible for 15% of all carbon emissions globally, which means that just those two materials are responsible for more carbon emissions than all of the commercial buildings in the entire world every year. So it was crucial to understand, well, what is the scope of the challenge? And then how can we begin to address the challenge? So the Carbon Leadership Forum began as a research program focused on, well, what is the data that we need, the reporting that we need, and the analysis that we need in order to drive embodied carbon emissions from the built environment down. And so over time, we developed an understanding that there really are three components to the change that we want to take place. At a very high level, we want to drive embodied carbon emissions down to zero, a radical reduction of embodied carbon. And that implies we have to have a strategy. And the strategy that we've come up with is it's a global strategy to begin with, because obviously the climate is a global challenge. Secondly, it's got to be based on science and a really deep and accurate understanding of the challenge. So we have what we call a theory of change. The theory of change is, what are all the things that have to happen in order to make this transformation, to create this transformation of the built environment? The first of those, the strategies that are essential is that we have to develop the data and the tools to do that. So as I think somebody, it may have been Cecilia, I'm not sure, in the chat window, put a note to the EC3 tool. 4 years ago, we released a software tool called the Embodied Carbon and Construction Calculator. And this EC3 tool is available free of charge for anybody in the world to use. And it accesses a database of many tens of thousands of different building materials. All of these building materials are represented in the database by what we call an EPD, or an environmental product declaration, that is created by the manufacturer of the material or the supplier of the material. And then an architect or an engineer can use this database and the tool to make intelligent decisions about selecting materials, designing buildings, and then selecting materials to go into them that have a low carbon footprint. So data and tools are essential, and we continue the research that we do. Much of it is focused on developing, evaluating, promoting, and making available tools to everybody in the building industry from the many different professions, not just architects and engineers. Secondly, the capitalist market cannot be successful by itself in driving the change that we need. So governments at all levels, local governments, regional governments, state governments, provincial governments, national governments, and international collaborations between governments, all of those need to have a policy objective that helps to drive down embodied carbon. And so we track all of those on our website with a map. And that is it's a global map that describes all of the different policies at different places in the world and at different levels of government that are helping to drive down embodied carbon. And we need actual policies to do that. So we do a great deal of research on the most effective policies at all levels of government, from local building codes all the way up to national procurement policies. So, as I said, first, it's data and tools. Secondly, it's policy. And the third leg of our stool is what we call collective impact. And collective impact it's a deep understanding that individual organizations, individual architects, engineers, individual actors by themselves, by ourselves, are not effective at creating transformational systemic change. Collaborative change is required, and that means building a movement on a global scale to share tools and data, to share policy ideas, to share materials, to share business ideas, and to collaborate, sharing ideas and knowledge to help to drive embodied carbon down. And we also understand that embodied carbon stands in relationship to operational carbon. That when you think about any building project or any infrastructure project, you have to be thinking about the entire carbon footprint of the process or the product. So both operational carbon or energy and embodied carbon have to be considered as part of the same area for analysis and action. So I probably talked enough, or maybe too much. So I'll be happy to answer other questions along with Megan and Nixon.
Great. Thanks a lot, Andrew. You did a very good job. I think you gave us a embodied carbon 101 and a great overview of the work of Carbon Leadership Forum. So tools, data, collective impact, and capacity development. Those are three things that I got. I think more we will be able to interact with as we go forward. So allow me quickly to just give an overview why I reached out to Carbon Leadership Forum and why we convened this platform. Then I will open it up to the plenary for us to react. But before then, I'm not going to give the others chance to say a word, say their names, but let me just acknowledge them. They can type their details on the chat. So I can see Ken Koyo joined us from Kisumu County. He's Director in charge of Environment. I can see Charles Gishane from Apex Steel. I can see Sylvester Mwacharo. I'm not sure from which county. Eric Ojungo also joined. And we also are joined by Vincent Mwango, who is the acting CEO of Kenya Property Developers Association, that is representing all private and commercial developers in Kenya. So I acknowledge your presence. We also have Hilary Matano joined us from Nico Green. You can just type your details on the chat for us to acknowledge. So a quick, I can see our time is going. In a few minutes, allow me to just present why the regional hub. So I have had the privilege to be involved with the industry, and some of the players are with us on this call in trying to actually catalyze the transition of our industry towards a sustainable pathway. And this, over the years, has taken the form of developing green building rating systems that are local. And some of the players we are here in the room, I think Gideon is here. We worked on local green building rating standards, both with the AAK, and we have other initiatives like the IFC is trying to promote the age, and we have KGBS, a lot of efforts ongoing in that end. And then more at the policy level, a bit of work. We know Kenya is a key player in terms of the climate change agenda. In fact, we are hosting the first climate change conference soon. Then we have recently with Cecilia here, and Kennedy from Public Works is also on the call. We had a chance to review the building code, just looking at possibilities for mainstreaming greening solutions in the code. The code, as we know, is almost being published. One of the things that have come more and more from my experience and engagement, of course, I also want to acknowledge Borax, and Architect Patrick Mugo is here. Borax from this year began planning for a series of training for the professionals, architects, quantity surveyors, and of course, we'll be looking at other professionals within the industry on upskilling them to be aware of greening, climate change agenda, and how they can be part and parcel of transitioning the industry. But one of the things that came out very clearly is that we need data. We need data, and we have a big challenge of data. Data that can inform practitioners from policy perspective. And here we have policymakers from the national governments, from the county governments. Data, especially in our sector, is really lacking. Number two, we need tools. And tools vary a lot. We have a whole range of tools. How do you do life cycle analysis for a whole building? How do you do life cycle analysis for product? How do you communicate your environmental footprint of the materials of the building in a transparent way, in a comparable way that stakeholders can attest to that it is valid, it is legit, but also they can compare and see one project, how a project performs from the other. So those are still remain a lot of challenges. And what part of the engagement with the manufacturers, and I'm glad that some of our manufacturers are here representing, is we have had a scenario that the green building agenda gradually is disadvantaging the local manufacturers because they happen not to, they are doing a lot, but their materials, the information is not packaged in a format that they can then benefit from it to really drive the sales. So you have some materials that are imported, that they have their EPDs, they're well communicated, they have part and parcel of a larger movement in their countries. So they're able to sell while our local materials are not really having that advantage. So how then do we catalyze the sector to have data, to have the tools that can inform decision-making, and to have the policies that are relevant to drive the change that we need at the space, so that we have the construction, the built environment sector be part and parcel of the climate change conversation in this country and in this continent. For now, the sector has not been very strong in terms of the conversations around carbon reduction, climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation. So we thought that it is important for us to be at the forefront of that conversation. Now, to do that at the scale that is needed, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. It will take us many years to build some of the create the portfolio of work that the Carbon Leadership Forum has been able to do over the years. So I embarked on a journey to look around, within the international landscape, who are championing the same agenda that we are interested in, who have developed these tools, these resources that we can be able to leverage. So eventually, I came into contact with the Carbon Leadership Forum, and I thought that they could help us work together with them to leverage on what they already have in place, so that we don't necessarily reinvent the wheel, but we look at what is available there, how we can contextualize that information, those tools, and the methodologies that they have, the data that they have, for example, the benchmarking of buildings, the policy tools that they have in place, and use them so that we can move at scale to be able to decarbonize our built environment and also build a climate resilient building. So that basically informed my outreach and engagement to Andrew and the team, and they are very gracious enough to host us. As you could hear from him, for example, on the EPDs, if you were to ask for now the cost of producing a local EPD certificate that is independently verified to have your product listed in the green building rating tools, if you go with the existing pathways, you will find it would cost you almost about 1 million Kenya shillings. So if you're looking at like Doshi that has over, so many products, how can you afford to have 1 million for 100 products? That would be a lot of money to just invest in the certificate. We need to have a mechanism to be able to have EPDs that can be locally done, but verified and are credible, that architects, QSS engineers can use and specify their buildings in a way that is cheaper for the manufacturer. So we needed to bring that cost from 1 million to a fraction of that cost by leveraging the existing tools like EC3 tool that Andrew mentioned, and then developing a national EPD program that all of us as stakeholders, from the policy, the practitioners, consultants, the manufacturers, have confidence in and agree that this is something that works for us and we buy in it. So that, and amongst other things, provides us a context of what we need to do as a regional hub. How do we train at scale? Do we need to develop new training modules? We don't necessarily. We can leverage on some of the materials that are already there in place and then bring in the local context and see how we can be able to empower, build capacity of our practitioners, our policymakers at scale. So that really formed the basis. And now I open it up to the plenary for questions and interactions. You can shoot your questions to Megan, to Andrew, and of course, to me. We don't have the answers. This more was to bring us together to just get an idea of what we are up to. And then as we are going to operate as the hub at a local scale, that is a conversation that we are going to shape together, not only on this call, but this call is just giving us a platform for us to begin the conversation. So I open up the platform. You can raise your hand for any reactions. It can be in form of a question. It can be in form of a comment. You are exceedingly welcome.
Yeah, Cecilia?
In terms of looking at the calculations, and because some of them can get kind of complex, and one of the issues that we have is we have the Kenya's grid is about 76% renewable. That doesn't mean that everybody is on the renewable side of the grid, but it's there. The other part of it is looking at percent local materials. So sometimes you have, like, for example, cement being a prime one. You might have the phosphates and the limestone may or may not be local, and some of the clinker, whereas the rest of it could be manufactured locally. So do you have experts that help us guide us through how to evaluate those sort of sensitivity and analysis?
Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong here. One of the great things about our regional hub is that Hubs program and our online community is that once you are involved, you can ask that exact question on the online community. And people who have that background, that knowledge, that insight can then kind of converse with you online, set up a meeting, kind of share those expertise and insight. Because once, you don't even need to be in a regional hub to access our online community, which is a really great source to answer those types of questions. So I would say that would probably be one of the kind of the roadways to addressing that question. I don't know if any of our resources could also help with that, but we do have a pretty extensive resource library on our website. But yeah, I think a great example of how we can use the online community and the network to crowdsource ideas and input. And then, hopefully kind of putting that into perspective for Kenya, for these communities that you're talking about.
Yeah, I'll just pop in and add, Meg, that was a great answer. The online community is a fantastic resource. There are several thousand members of CLF around the world from, I think, something like close to 100 different countries. And our model, our philosophy is collective impact. We want to, the resources available are, on the one hand, there's a relatively small but growing staff of researchers and consultants at the Carbon Leadership Forum, but we also have thousands of members who are also themselves experts in a variety of different fields. And so asking that question in the online community would be one great way to take a first step. Another thing that you referred to is data, and being able to have the data for local or regional Kenyan or African materials and suppliers is really essential in moving forward. So for example, the EC3 tool, I think there are something over 100,000 different products that have EPDs that are connected or collected in that database. But I'm guessing that not that many of them may be from the Kenyan market. And so one of the challenges is how do we help the database to grow, to become more international and representative of the kinds of materials that you want to be able to select from as an architect or an engineer in Kenya. And that's a conversation to be had with not only with the CLF, but also with, there is a separate, different nonprofit organization now in charge of the further development of the database and of the EC3 tool. And the name of that organization is Building Transparency. And they are extremely interested in helping the EC3 tool and that database become more comprehensive, become international. And we want to help to drive the adoption and utilization of life cycle assessment practice and tools around the world, not just in North America, for sure.
Megan, I can see Gideon's hand is raised. Gideon, you can ask or comment. Thanks, Andrew, for that great answer.
All right, thank you very much, Andrew, Megan, and Nixon for well-articulated piece. I think I want to thank CLF for spearheading a very important area that we've been struggling with, especially to establish how embedded carbon can be communicated to people. When you have tools, of course, they are very technical, and especially that empirical data you collect need to be simplified in a way that the developers or the people that we deal with in the built environment, in the built industry, are able to understand. So how have you managed to deal with it in your situation where do you have small pamphlets that have been simplified to explain what happens when one, for instance, takes a material, imports a material from one location to the other? Or do you have some simplified methods of sensitizing and creating awareness? Thank you.
So you're talking about the availability of educational materials, right?
Yes.
It's really important to kind of tell the story. I think that one of the challenges is that not that many people in the public, not that many people among policymakers, and not that many people among building industry professionals really understand what the challenge is or the problem that we're trying to solve is. And so one of the things that I'd like to really recommend is I'm going to find a link on our website here. And I'm going to put that link in the chat window. And the link is to a video series on embodied carbon that's been published by our organization. And I think that there are 6 different, hold on just a second, if you don't mind. So basically,
it actually is linked in the info sheet
good.
The policy. Yep. Both the policy toolkit and the policy education video series.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Megan. You just saved me some time of looking for that thing. It's a really great series. We invested some resources in creating a comprehensive course in how do you understand embodied carbon and the policies at all levels that can help drive change. And so I would first of all recommend that people watch that series and even organize meetings around watching that series with groups of people to really help folks understand the nature of the challenge and how embodied carbon fits into the overall carbon picture. And again, I think what Cecilia mentioned a minute ago is really important. On the one hand, you've got a relatively clean grid in Kenya. That's really a remarkably high percentage for renewables. But it's not enough just to say, well, electrify everything and you'll be fine, right? So it's a combination of creating a cleaner grid. It's a combination of helping material suppliers understand how important it is to produce an environmental product declaration for the material that they're selling. It's a matter of working together with government officials who can be really important leaders in helping to drive change. And it's about helping architects and engineers understand, well, here are some tools that are available, and here's the difference here's how different tools stack up and may be more appropriate to use than others. So there are very kind of important decisions that policymakers can make, and very important decision that professional designers can make that are quite different and require different types of tools and different types of data.
Thanks for answering that, Andrew, and thank you for the question, Gideon. So I'm just being aware of the time. We're coming up on the hour. So I just want to thank everyone again for making time to come and for Nixon to help organize this. I'm very excited to continue to work with you all and creating a regional hub and kind of setting some goals and timelines and just getting started on this really important work. And I think some next steps can be, I'll get everyone's emails from Nixon. I can send a quick summary with the links and resources that we talked about today, as well as some next steps for creating the co-leadership team, getting organized and getting started. So Cecilia, great question. And I can definitely add some notes about that exactly, because getting started is probably the hardest part. And so, yeah, I definitely will be sending that follow-up email, and thank you again. It was awesome to meet you all, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Megan. So for clarity also on the next steps, of course, we will share out the details. And for the Kenyan hub, so we should regard ourselves as the initial team of the founding team of the hub. and we will be communicating. I request some of you, don't have your contact details yet because you are nominated by your organizations. If you can drop them to me so that our team can compile that, and we'll be able to circulate an email to all so that we can have follow-up materials. I think the other next step would be that we would, of course, set up a group, and we would agree on a follow-on local meeting so that we can begin discussing some of the priorities. From our end, we had thought of a few activities to begin looking at, like thoughts around, bit of research, policy intervention, and developing a local national EPD program. But we would love to have more conversation and prioritize what activities we can do. I think one of also the activities would be the trainings capacity, basically going through the embodied carbon. We would agree whether we could run it at the initial this team, or we bring our organization representative, and how we'll be scaling it up. So some of those are some of the things we'll be able to discuss. I think first and foremost, share the details, then we'll send out an email. Megan and Andrew will also share with us more information, part of what they have shared. Then we can plan a meeting. We will agree whether we can use it virtual or we can have a physical meeting where we will also lay more in details the structure of how the Kenyan hub would be. We are also thinking of a possibility to organize a major launch in September at the Africa Climate Week. Most of you know that Kenya is hosting the Africa Climate Week in first week of September. That would be a good opportunity for us if you're able to prioritize activities and come up with some program and hopefully pilot something that we could do at our counties or in our companies, organizations, or in our projects. That would be good to highlight at that event during the launch. So these are some of the details we will be conversing in due course to prioritize and agree on how we get them going. Thank you so much.
I'll just thank you very much, Nixon. I'll just add that tomorrow we have the monthly CLF newsletter coming out. And if I can get all of your email addresses from Nixon, I'll make sure that you're included in that mailing so that you get a kind of the most up-to-date sense of all of the things that are happening in the CLF network. And I just personally want to close by thanking all of you for being here. I know that this is dinner time. So you're all making a big sacrifice to sit here with us on a Zoom room. So thank you so much for being here. I find this conversation just incredibly exciting. And I'm very, very grateful to Megan and Nixon for setting it up, and for all of you for taking part in the transformation of the largest industry on the planet.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we will reach out in due course. Before you sign off, allow me to have all your contact details for the follow-up.
Nixon, I'll provide you with the contents of the chat window. I'll send an email to you with all of the names that everybody's putting in here.
Perfect. That would be an easy way of getting up. Thank you so much.
So if you have,
and for the Kenya team, any questions also you have, feel free to reach out to us via mail or call for any clarifications. And we look forward to engaging and a vibrant hub. Andrew, thank you so much to the CLF team, and we look forward to our collaboration and support from your team, gaining from experience and the resources to transform this sector in our region.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'll stay in the meeting as long as it takes for everybody to put in their contact information or your email address if you're doing that.
Hi, Andrew, thanks. So we talk later.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
So Nixon, I'll go ahead and send you an email with the chat window text messages in it so that you'll have all of those email addresses.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Have a great day ahead.
You too.